"Are you blind or just lazy?" barked Amanda, the janitorial supervisor, her voice echoing with sharp contempt. She glared at Jordan, a young black janitor who stood quietly beside a spotless glass table. "I just cleaned that," Jordan said, his voice calm but firm. Without hesitation, Amanda grabbed a full cup of coffee and hurled it across the table. The hot liquid splattered against the pristine surface, dripping slowly onto the floor. Arms crossed and eyes hard, she leaned in, smirking. "Clean it again. But before we go any further, if you believe every person deserves respect regardless of skin color or job title, hit that subscribe button right now, drop a like, and tell us where you're watching from. Because this story, it's about to challenge everything you think you know about power, respect, and identity." It was a chilly morning at Kingsley Enterprises, a towering symbol of wealth and prestige. This real estate empire was known for high-stakes deals, luxury offices, and employees who wore their suits like armor. Inside, expensive lattes steamed on marble countertops. Meetings buzzed. Everything was polished. Then came the sound that didn't belong. A single motorcycle rumbled to a stop outside the glass entrance. Jordan Carter stepped off, dressed in a simple gray hoodie, worn jeans, and an old backpack slung over one shoulder. He didn't look like he belonged, at least not to them. But appearances can be deceiving. Because what no one knew, not the security guard at the front, not the smirking manager near the lobby, was that Jordan was no ordinary visitor. He was the firstborn son of Kingsley Enterprises' billionaire founder, the rightful heir to the company, and soon the next CEO. But today, he was walking in as a nobody. Jordan had been living abroad for years, learning, growing, honoring the legacy of his late mother, a brilliant, resilient black woman who had once walked these same streets, unseen by the world she helped shape. Rumors had reached him. Whispers. Talk of promotions denied, voices silenced, minorities passed over. He had heard the stories. But now, he was here to see it for himself. As he stepped through the front doors, he immediately felt the weight of eyes. Stylish employees glanced up, confused. Two receptionists exchanged suspicious glances. The room's energy shifted. Then came Kevin Matthews, senior manager, slick hair, smug smile, and an ego the size of the building. He saw Jordan, sized him up, and didn't even try to hide his disdain. Kevin stepped forward and blocked his path. "Hey, deliveries go around the back." Jordan paused. There it was, the first taste. He met Kevin's gaze, let the silence hang. Have you ever walked into a place and felt judged before you even said a word? Drop a comment if you've ever been underestimated like that. Jordan could have said it right then. Could have revealed exactly who he was. But he didn't. Not yet. Instead, he smiled slightly and said, "Actually, I'm not here for a delivery. I'm looking for a job." Kevin laughed. "A job? Here?" He gave Jordan a once-over, scoffing. "We're not hiring." But Jordan stood his ground. "I'll take anything. Any position." Kevin exchanged a look with the receptionist. "Hey, check the system," he said, clearly expecting nothing. The receptionist tapped a few keys and smirked. "Well, we do have one opening." Kevin turned, now openly amused. "Oh yeah? What is it?" She grinned. "Janitorial team." For a moment, no one said a word. Then Kevin looked back at Jordan. "So, you said you needed a chance. Here it is." Jordan paused, then nodded with quiet resolve. "I'll take it." Kevin blinked. "What?" Jordan repeated, louder this time. "I'll take the job." The room erupted in muffled laughter. "The janitor? This guy?" But Jordan didn't flinch. He didn't argue. He just smiled. Because in that moment he knew something they didn't. They had just handed the future CEO a front-row seat to see exactly what was broken in his father's empire. And soon, he would fix it. But first he had to walk through the fire. You might think getting a job would make things easier. But for Jordan Carter, the real challenge was just beginning. Imagine working in a place where every glance tells you you don't belong. Where every word reminds you you're less than. Ever been treated unfairly just for being you? Drop your story in the comments because this one, it's about to show you what real injustice looks like, and how karma has a way of arriving on schedule. There he stood, mop in hand, bucket at his feet, wearing the janitor uniform that screamed invisible. To everyone else he was just the help. But in truth, he was the future CEO of Kingsley Enterprises, billionaire heir, secret son of the company's founder. Jordan had only been working for an hour when the message became crystal clear. He wasn't welcome. Under shimmering chandeliers and marble floors polished by generations before him, no one realized that this man, quiet, calm, observant, was about to inherit the empire they worked for. And no one made their disdain more obvious than his new supervisor. Her name was Amanda Whitmore. Tall, icy blonde, and proud of her title, far too proud. Amanda had been with the company for years, and she saw her authority over janitorial staff as proof of her worth. In her eyes, Jordan was beneath her, and she wasted no time letting him know. You. Her sharp voice rang through the hallway like a slap. Jordan looked up, mop still in hand. What do you think you're doing? She snapped, storming toward him like a storm cloud with heels. Jordan blinked. Mopping? He replied evenly. Don't get smart with me, she spat, her eyes narrowing. I don't like your kind thinking you can act all high and mighty around here. Your kind. Jordan didn't react. He just smiled. Because he needed to see how far this woman's hate would go. And oh, it ran deep. Amanda didn't just dislike Jordan. She despised him. No matter how hard he worked, she criticized it. If he polished a floor? Still dirty. If he wiped a window? You missed a spot. If he emptied a bin? You're too slow. But Amanda didn't stop at corrections. No, she wanted an audience. Are you stupid? She shouted one afternoon as Jordan quietly finished cleaning the executive lounge. He looked up, setting his rag down. Did I do something wrong? Amanda rolled her eyes, turning dramatically toward a few snickering employees nearby. Did you do something wrong? She mocked. Oh, I don't know. Maybe just standing here like a clueless 5-year-old. They laughed. Whispered. But Jordan? He took mental notes of every face. He didn't flinch. Because soon, every one of them would regret how they treated him. And just when you thought Amanda was the worst, enter Kevin Matthews. Yep, that Kevin. The smug manager who had dismissed Jordan on his very first day. Still completely unaware that the janitor he mocked would soon hold his career in the palm of his hand. Kevin strutted into the hallway, arms crossed, watching Jordan scrub the floor on his knees. Well, well, well. His voice dripped with sarcasm. Guess we found the perfect place for you, huh? Jordan didn't look up. Not yet. Not yet. Kevin made it his personal mission to humiliate Jordan. He'd spill coffee on purpose, toss trash behind him as Jordan cleaned, call him boy in front of everyone. Some employees laughed. Some stayed silent. But a few started watching Jordan a little more closely. There was something different about him. His confidence. His composure. The way he observed everything. Almost like he was studying them. But the abuse? It didn't stop. Until one day, Amanda crossed a line she couldn't uncross. Jordan had just finished cleaning the executive conference room. The table gleamed. Not a single streak. Not a single crumb. Then Amanda stormed in. What is this? She snapped, pointing at the spotless table like it had insulted her. Jordan blinked. It's the table? This is filthy. Are you blind? He looked at the surface again, baffled. I just cleaned it. You missed a spot, she hissed. And with no warning, she grabbed a full cup of coffee and threw it across the table. Hot liquid splashed across the glass, dripping onto the floor. Now clean it again. Time stopped. The hallway fell silent. Everyone within earshot froze. Their eyes wide. Their mouths slightly open. Even the janitorial team, used to being ignored, looked shaken. Jordan took a long, slow breath. Then he smiled. Because now, the real show was about to begin. Amanda didn't know. Kevin didn't know. No one knew that the man they had tormented was about to become their boss. And the storm was already coming. At that exact moment, the receptionist's phone rang, piercing through the tension like a warning bell. She answered with her usual practiced tone, but within seconds her expression changed. Then panic. Because the man on the other end of the line was Robert Kingsley himself. The billionaire. The founder. The man whose name was on every building, every letterhead, every check. And he wasn't calling. He was on his way. The news tore through the building like wildfire. Executives fixed their ties. Assistants scrambled to organize files. Nervous whispers filled the air. The boss was coming in, unannounced. And no one, not a single soul, was more excited than Kevin Matthews. In Kevin's mind, this was his moment. He imagined himself shaking hands with Robert Kingsley, schmoozing, impressing, earning that promotion he just knew he deserved. As for the janitor, Jordan, oh, he wasn't even on Kevin's radar anymore. But that was about to change. Drastically. You ever wish you could be a fly on the wall when karma walks through the front door in a tailored suit? Because what's about to happen? It's poetic justice at its finest. So go ahead, Hit that like button if you believe respect shouldn't come with conditions, and comment justice if you've ever dreamed of watching the arrogant get humbled. Because this moment? Oh, they'll never forget it. To most people in that office, Jordan Carter was just part of the background. Another uniformed face mopping floors in a building full of suits and self-importance. But that illusion? It was about to explode. The elevator dinged, and suddenly the entire room froze. Robert Kingsley had arrived. Tall, imposing, crisp gray suit, diamond cufflinks, a legacy in his stride. And behind him, assistants, executives, bodyguards, all moving like a polished military unit. As Robert stepped into the center of the office floor, every employee straightened up, back stiff, smiles plastered on. Kevin Matthews, the smug manager, puffed out his chest, already picturing himself shaking hands with the boss. Amanda Whitmore, the sharp-tongued supervisor, adjusted her blouse and positioned herself just right, desperate to be noticed. Whispers filled the air. This is it. The boss is here. Is he here about the new CEO? And then Robert began to speak. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, voice like velvet over steel. Today is a very special day for Kingsley Enterprises. Kevin leaned forward, practically vibrating with anticipation. Amanda folded her hands, eyes gleaming with ambition. Robert continued. 4 years I've built this company hoping to leave behind not just wealth, but a legacy. A culture of excellence, of discipline, and above all, integrity. That last word landed with weight. Some employees shifted uncomfortably. And today, Robert said with a smile, I am proud to announce that my firstborn son is officially present in the building. Silence. You could hear the air conditioning hum. People blinked. His son? His heir? Kevin's heart skipped. Amanda froze mid-blink. Wait, they'd never met Robert's eldest son. Ever. The younger one from his second marriage? Sure. But not this one. Kevin's mind raced. It must be one of the new suits. That guy from finance, maybe? Probably some tall white Ivy League guy with a Rolex and a last name people respect. Amanda glanced at Kevin, smirking. They were in the clear. But then, Robert spoke again. My son is already here, he said. Jordan, come on up. Everything stopped. Every single head turned. And then they saw him, standing at the edge of the room, still in his janitor uniform, still holding his mop. Jordan Carter. The same man they'd mocked, laughed at, humiliated. Kevin's smirk vanished. Amanda gasped, clutching her chest. A low "no way" rippled from the crowd. The janitor was the CEO? Kevin's face drained of all color. Amanda's knees wobbled, and everyone around them began to murmur. Is this real? That's the new CEO? But he was scrubbing toilets. Jordan stepped forward, calm, composed, and deadly serious. He looked out across the office, his eyes meeting the very people who disrespected him all week. I'm sure you all have questions, Jordan said, voice steady and powerful. No one dared speak. Kevin stood paralyzed, blinking like he was glitching. Amanda looked like she was praying it was all a prank show. Jordan let the silence hang for a moment longer. Then he turned to his father. Robert nodded once, approvingly. Jordan faced the room again, and in that moment, the building belonged to him. My name is Jordan Carter Kingsley, he said. I am Robert Kingsley's firstborn son, and as of today, I'm your new CEO. Boom. The soundless detonation of truth ripped through the office. A few employees gasped. One even let out a whistle. Jordan stood tall, unmoved, untouchable. For the first time, everyone was seeing him clearly. Not as the janitor. Not as the outsider. But as the man in charge. Over the past few days, Jordan said, pacing slowly, I've worked in this building as a janitor. Another wave of murmurs swept the room. I did it because I wanted to see with my own eyes how this company, my company, treats people. Amanda looked like she might faint. Kevin looked like he already had. Because they knew exactly what they'd done. And now, the man they had dismissed, held their futures in his hands. When people think no one is watching, that's when the truth shows itself. And right now Jordan Carter had seen everything. His eyes locked onto Kevin Matthews. Kevin gulped. What I saw, Jordan began, his voice lowering, wasn't just disappointing, it was disgusting. Kevin's entire body flinched. His breath came quicker. Panic was rising. Jordan took a calm, deliberate step toward him. You looked at me like I was nothing. You mocked me, laughed in my face, and you did it without hesitation, because you thought you were untouchable. Kevin's hands began to tremble. He opened his mouth, trying to speak, trying to salvage even a shred of dignity. But Jordan simply raised a hand, and Kevin's mouth snapped shut. Then Jordan turned, slowly, until his gaze landed on Amanda. Her face was a deep shade of red. Her eyes darted around the room looking for something, anything, to save her. But there was nothing. No lifeline. No escape. Jordan tilted his head slightly. "And you," he said softly. Amanda's breath caught in her throat. "You threw coffee across a table. You humiliated me in front of the entire floor." Amanda squeezed her eyes shut, like she could block out the truth if she just didn't look at it. But the weight of Jordan's words didn't go away. And then Jordan's voice cut through the thick silence. "Let me ask you both something." The entire office held its breath. "If you had known who I was from the start, would you have treated me any differently?" Silence. A long, painful silence. And then, Amanda nodded. Slowly. Shamefully. Without excuse. Jordan smiled. Because in that moment the power shifted. The same man they belittled was now the one deciding their futures. For a split second, Kevin dared to believe this was all just a bad dream. A cruel prank. But it wasn't. This was real, and Kevin Matthews had just made the worst mistake of his life. Jordan turned his head again, scanning the room. Every face. Every expression. Some people had stood back and said nothing. Some had laughed right along. But a few, a very small few, had shown compassion. And Jordan? He remembered them all. His gaze locked back on Kevin. And then finally he spoke. Kevin Matthews. The name hit like a hammer. Kevin flinched visibly, his whole body stiff with fear. He knew what was coming. Still he had to try. "Sir," Kevin stammered, his voice trembling as he tried to force a smile. I had no idea." Jordan raised his hand again. Kevin shut up instantly. "Because the thing about power? You know exactly when you've lost it." And Kevin? He had lost everything. Jordan took one more step forward. "Let me ask you something, Kevin," he said, his voice calm, but dangerous. Kevin swallowed hard, nodding slightly. "If you had known who I was," Jordan asked, "would you have treated me the way you did?" Kevin froze. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. But no words came out. Because they both already knew the truth. Kevin lowered his head. I didn't know," he muttered. "I know," Jordan replied, cold and clear. "That's the point." Because Kevin hadn't been cruel because he was having a bad day. He hadn't snapped because of stress. No, Kevin had humiliated him because he believed he was beneath him. And that Jordan would never forgive. His eyes shifted to Amanda. She had been standing stiff and pale, her hands gripping her skirt so tightly her knuckles turned white. Now those wide, terrified eyes stared straight at Jordan. "Sir, I was just following company policy," she blurted out quickly, desperate to defend herself. Jordan raised an eyebrow. "Company policy?" Amanda nodded furiously. "Yes, sir. I mean, I was just doing my job." Jordan tilted his head. "Throwing coffee across a table?" he asked. Amanda's face went ghostly. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Because there was no excuse. No defense. No saving herself from this. Jordan let the silence sit there, heavy and suffocating, letting them feel every ounce of the shame they had earned. Then he turned to his father. Robert Kingsley, who had remained silent through it all, now stepped forward. His face unreadable. But in his eyes? Regret. Deep, burning regret. For the first time in his long career, Robert Kingsley was ashamed. Ashamed of what his company had become. Ashamed of the people he had trusted to uphold its values. And now, he was ready to set things right. "Jordan," Robert said quietly but firmly, "what do you think should be done?" Kevin's entire body trembled. Amanda clutched her hands together, praying for mercy. But Jordan? Jordan didn't hesitate for even a second. "Fire them." Robert nodded slowly. "Kevin Matthews," he said, voice flat and final, "your employment with Kingsley Enterprises is terminated. Effective immediately." Kevin's legs almost gave out beneath him. "No," he whispered. "No, sir, please, Robert, please, I didn't." But Robert didn't even look at him. He turned to Amanda. "Amanda Whitmore," he said, "your position as supervisor is revoked. You are no longer employed here." Amanda gasped, her lips trembling. No, please," she stammered, spinning toward Jordan. "Sir, please, I didn't mean." Jordan held up one finger. And Amanda's voice vanished. Because now they knew exactly how it felt. To be powerless. Jordan raised his hand, and Amanda's voice died in her throat. Just like that, it was over. Kevin Matthews and Amanda Whitmore, once so sure of themselves, had spent days humiliating a man they believed to be beneath them. Now, they stood with nothing. Stripped of titles, stripped of pride, stripped of power. But Jordan? Jordan wasn't done. He turned slowly, facing the employees, the same people who had watched it all unfold. Then a smile. "Not all of you stayed silent," he said. And at that moment someone stepped forward. It was Linda. The only one who had spoken up. The one who dared to show kindness when no one else would. Jordan turned to his father and spoke clearly for all to hear. "My first official decision as CEO," he paused, "is to promote Linda. Effective immediately." Gasps echoed through the room. Shock rippled like a wave. Linda's eyes welled with tears. Her hands trembled. And just like that, balance had been restored. For days, Jordan Carter had walked among them. Watching. Listening. Measuring not just how he was treated, but how they treated each other. And now, with the truth out and justice served, Kevin was gone. Amanda was disgraced. And those who stayed silent? They were about to learn a lesson they'd never forget. Because this wasn't just about one man's victory. This was about changing a system that had allowed that kind of behavior to exist in the first place. The room was silent. Dead silent. The same employees who had once whispered behind his back. The ones who laughed as Amanda shouted at him in front of everyone. They now couldn't even meet his eyes. Jordan still wore his janitor's uniform. Still held that calm, quiet authority. But now, there was no doubt. He was their leader. He took one step forward. Then another. The weight of the moment was heavy, deliberate. He let it settle, scanning each face. And then he spoke. One word. Respect. It cut through the room like lightning. He let the silence stretch, let them sit with it. Then, respect is not a privilege reserved for a few, Jordan said. It is not determined by race. Not by income. Not by what you wear or how you speak. He paused again, eyes burning with clarity. Respect must be the foundation of everything we do. Because without it, we become exactly what this company was this past week. Heads bowed. Eyes dropped. You could see the guilt, the realization, settling over them like a fog. "I have walked these halls invisible," Jordan continued. "Ignored. Mocked. Treated as less than human." He glanced toward the table in the executive conference room. The same one Amanda had thrown coffee across just to humiliate him. "I've been forced to clean up messes made purely to demean me." He let the weight of that land. "And through it all, I've learned something." Everyone in the room was holding their breath. The people who tear others down, they don't do it because they're strong. They do it because they're afraid. He looked around, slowly. Afraid of change. Afraid of equality. Afraid of a world where power isn't determined by privilege, but by integrity. The truth was raw, powerful, and everyone knew it. That ends today. You could hear a pin drop. Because these weren't just words. This was a promise. Jordan turned back to Robert Kingsley, his father, the founder, the man who had built the empire. Robert met his gaze and nodded once. Not just in approval, in trust. Jordan Carter wasn't just the son of a CEO. He was the future of the company. And that future started now. Effective immediately, Jordan announced, Kingsley Enterprises will adopt new anti-discrimination policies. This company will operate under a zero-tolerance approach for harassment, bias, and abuse of power. There were gasps, but no objections. Because what could they say? There was no defense left. There will be accountability. There will be consequences. And most importantly, there will be change. And then he did something no one expected. He smiled. Because this moment, it wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about humiliation. It was about building something better. This company, Jordan said, will no longer be built on arrogance. It will be built on respect, on fairness, on the belief that we all rise when we lift each other up. And just like that, everything shifted. The air felt different. The people felt different. Because in that moment, they didn't just see him as the CEO. They saw a leader. For the first time, they believed this company was finally in the right hands. Jordan turned back to his father. Robert Kingsley, the man who once built an empire, took a deep breath. And then, in front of the entire company, he did something no one had ever seen him do. He stepped forward and shook his son's hand. A declaration. A public passing of the torch. This company now belonged to Jordan Carter. And from this moment forward, things would never be the same. This is how you change the world. Not with bitterness. Not with vengeance. But with power, real power. The kind that doesn't just break broken systems. To build something new. Something better.